Chapter 15 Setbacks. Link should have known that it would come to this. He knew that the rider was trouble from the second he saw him, and he should have ducked back into the forest when he had the chance, but did he? No. He just stood there like an idiot as he approached, and now raindrops were being scattered as their swords clashed. The pompous rider was far more skilled than the young man had guessed, however, and instead of the quick victory he imagined, Link was just barely able to hold his own. "Give me that chest," the rider ordered as he shoved Link back. "I have no wish to kill you, so surrender it now, and you can just tell Gargamel that you haven't recovered it yet." "I don't know any Gargamel, friend," the young man replied. "But this chest is too important to give up, and if you know what's in it, then I have to stop you." Rushing at each other again, thunder crashed as their swords hit, their attacks bouncing off each other's shields as both tried to overpower the other with a mixture of strength and finesse. Link slashed at the rider's feet, but he jumped back and bashed the young man with the shield, knocking him down. He then stabbed at him with the silver sword, but Link managed to deflect it with his own shield before kicking the rider in the stomach hard enough to make him stumble back. Normally, the kick probably wouldn't have been strong enough to knock him down, but the forest floor was slippery, so he fell onto his back in a puddle of mud. "Oh no!" the rider shrieked as he scrambled to get out of it. "No, no, no, this is my good armor! What will people think if they see me out looking like this?" "They'll think you fell in the mud," Link replied as he got up. "Now go away." As much as he wanted to teach this person a lesson, he needed to get the chest back to Impa before anything else happened. After all, he didn't know how many different chests the princess had hidden, and the search could take a very long time, so he started to walk away, but then sighed in annoyance when he heard the rider's armor shaking, meaning that he was getting up. As he turned back around, the young man hoped that the rider would be walking back to his horse to leave, but no, of course he wasn't. He was back on his feet with sword ready, and slowly advancing to continue the fight. "There is no reason for this," Link continued as he readied his own sword. "We can just go our separate ways." "We certainly can," the rider replied. "All you have to do is give me that chest." He attacked with a downward swing, but instead of trying to match him, the young man backed off. He did the same the next few attacks that the rider made, slowly luring him back towards the trees a little at a time. Suddenly, Link's back was against the first tree, and the rider stabbed, but this was the young man's plan. At the last second, he moved out of the way, causing the rider's blade to become so embedded in the wood that he couldn't pull it back out, at least not before Link hit him right in the bandaged part of his arm with the bottom of his sword hilt. The rider cried out as he let go of his sword, but then he raised his shield and rushed at Link, making him also lose his weapon as they collided. Falling to the ground, they tried to hit each other with their shields, while making failed attempts to restrain each other with their other arms, and this went on until a shadow loomed over the two of them. Stopping and looking up, they had just enough time to scream and jump out of the way just before the living statue that Link had faced inside the Lion Fortress landed where they had been. It stabbed at the young man with its spear, who just barely was able to roll out of the way, and then it swung the weapon at the rider, impacting his shield hard enough to knock him into another mud puddle. "Look out, it'll crush you!" As expected, the statue leaped into the air, and the rider let out a high-pitched shriek as he rolled out of the way, causing him to get splashed with even more mud when it landed. The statue sunk deep into the rain-softened terrain as it slashed at him with its spear, but it missed, so it leapt again, but was only able to get a few inches up before sinking back in. It made a second attempt, with the same result, and all this could only mean one thing. "It's stuck," Link said as he got up. "The statue, it's stuck." The rider seemed to realize this as well, and now they both started laughing, moving closer to the statue as its constant struggling only made it sink deeper each time it moved. The pouring rain combined with its weight and struggles had a quicksand effect on the ground, and before long its body, weapon, and even the highest parts of its head vanished underneath the mud. The two of them just stood there laughing at how the monster had defeated itself, but then Link suddenly balled up his fist and punched the rider in the side of the head as hard as he could, making him collapse. "There better be a good reward for all this," the young man said to himself as he went to retrieve his sword. Meanwhile, in the Lost Hills, A chill ran down Aghanim's spine when the sorcerer revealed his name and how he was starting to realize just how dire the situation had become. He wasn't so deluded to believe that he was a match for Ganondorf, especially with knowing that his power was augmented by the Triforce of Power. So his first thought was to escape. Lizard Mine was destroyed, so he couldn't duck in there. There was a river at the bottom of the hill he was on, but it was a little far away, and there was always running back to the eastern forest, but that could lead him to the other chest they had found. "Everything, little wizard," Ganondorf said. "Drop everything that you took from the mine, and I will let you leave here unharmed." There was no way of knowing which chest had the Triforce of Wisdom, meaning that he couldn't let him get a hold of even one. So, Aghanim vanished, reappearing as close as he could to the river, but Ganondorf appeared in front of him, an instant later with a backhand that sent the robed wizard rolling and sliding across the dirt and rocks. The sorcerer laughed to himself as Aghanim pulled himself to his feet, and he wouldn't have thought it possible, but now his situation was even worse. If Ganondorf was able to teleport like he could, then escape was impossible, and there was only one option left. "Burna!" Aghanim shouted as magical energy turned his robes red. "Saltaire! Vitalidad!" Magic crackled around his feet, increasing his speed and agility as he called out the second spell, and the minor wounds he had received were healed as he called out the third. It was obvious that he was going to have to fight Ganondorf on his own, at least until he could find a way to escape. So he attacked, throwing a ball of flame at the sorcerer, and then vanishing only to reappear right in front of him with a powerful kick to the chest. Ganondorf stumbled back from the hit, but Aghanim didn't let up. Letting loose a flurry of punches to the sorcerer's face and torso, he drove Ganondorf further and further back. He then vanished, reappearing in the air while producing a ball of flame in his hand, which he used as he smacked the enemy in the side of the face. The fireball dispersed in a flash of flame as Ganondorf was sent tumbling sideways, and then it was his turn to slide across the ground after falling on his face. Now feeling a little better about his chances, Aghanim was trying to decide whether to run or keep attacking when the sorcerer got up. Not in a pained effort that should have been the result of such a beating, but completely unharmed, and simply annoyed at the very most, as he brushed the dirt off of his clothes. "Not bad, for a mere boy," he said while taking a moment to stretch. "To tell you the truth, I was in a bit of a hurry this morning, but well, yes, I believe I can spare a few minutes to teach you the proper ways of magical combat." Vanishing, Ganondorf reappeared in front of Aghanim with a punch to the chest that was so powerful, it was like the shielding spell on his robes wasn't even there. This meant that the blow probably would have killed him if he hadn't used it, instead of just getting sent rolling across the rocky ground. Unlike the sorcerer, however, Aghanim did not have an easy time getting up, and he had to use a nearby large rock to pull himself up. In fact, the robed wizard was just getting to his feet when Ganondorf reappeared to continue his own attacks. He punched Aghanim in the side of the head, making him fall back against the rock, and then gave him several lefts and rights to both sides of the head until sunk down to the ground. "I will take that, thank you," he said, taking the chest from Aghanim's robe as he struggled to get to his hands and knees. "But you may have this in return." The sorcerer then slammed his foot into Aghanim's stomach, making him fall back down, and then he grabbed the robed wizard's wrist, putting his foot on his upper arm. Stomping down as hard as he could while pulling the wrist upward, Aghanim screamed in agony as a wet snapping sound came from his now broken arm. Laughing as he released the useless appendage, Ganondorf pulled the robed wizard to his feet by the back of his neck and booted him in the chest, making him not only stumble back but also roll most of the way down the very steep and rocky part of the hill, skidding to a stop near the river. "Now, as pleasant as this has been, it is time for us to part ways," the sorcerer continued as a sphere of blue energy gathered in his hands. "Goodbye, Aghanim." The sphere doubled in size before it was tossed at the robed wizard, and as it screamed towards him, the power he felt coming from it made him fear that he wouldn't survive it even with his shielding spell. The chest was lost either way, but there was a single chance for him to survive, and if he managed to escape, he could always find a way to get it back later. But hey, maybe he would get lucky and the Triforce would be in the one that Link was retrieving. "Reflare," Aghanim groaned, holding up his hand. Suddenly, the robed wizard's hand was shimmering in a manner similar to if anyone had seen Prince Fasad's shield, and when the energy sphere struck him, it was bounced back. Ganondorf dove out of the way, and then there was a massive explosion at the top of the hill, giving Aghanim the cover he needed to vanish and reappear in the water. The fast-moving current quickly swept him away, as the sorcerer could be heard screaming in rage. And then, a small sphere of energy slammed into the rock face next to him, causing large pieces of stone to rain down into the water. The robed wizard managed to avoid getting hit by them, but there was no way for him to avoid going over the edge of the waterfall that was just ahead.